It's Elly De La Cruz Day. Unfortunately, it's also Jacob deGrom and Alek Manoah Day here on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast, brought to you by Batflip. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. It is a wild sports day. Sometimes we lament, okay, there's some news items here before the start of our pod. Nothing huge. Today, massive. I mean, it started in golf, actually. My phone blowing up about the Live and PGA Tour merging and all that. We won't get into that here because gaming golf no longer exists. But, wow, we got Elly De La Cruz. We've got Jacob deGrom, and we got Alec Manoah all to talk about, among other regular stuff. Fred, how you doing?
Wait, we weren't going to talk about golf for this whole podcast? Well, I'm so
well, it's the Canadian Open. I thought we may do it in your honor there. Sorry.
I don't know anything about that golf story. I didn't even know it was the Canadian Open this weekend. So
yeah,
there you go. I guess I'm not very plugged. I didn't even know that there. So you're saying there isn't fantasy golf? Is that what you just kind of said?
There is fantasy golf.
There is fantasy golf.
Really
I knew
affects
that.
us. I'm in a league that's been existing for over 20 years, actually.
I do know some guys who play fantasy golf. So
yeah, it is. It's pretty crazy. So let's talk. Let's go positive first. It's Elly De La Cruz season. It starts tonight. Bidding starts on Sunday in the NFBC and other leagues, but it starts tonight. De La Cruz at third base, batting cleanup. He is up, and for those of us who have been holding on to him, it's a huge day.
Absolutely. I know my initial reaction is there's one of two paths here for De La Cruz. One is he's a fantasy stud. The other one is he's pretty good because he has a low batting average. That'd be those. I think those are the two possible outcomes here. I don't really see a scenario where he's a total dud. Right. I guess he hits 180 or something, and maybe they don't play him. I don't know. I feel like just his skill set, looking at his minor league stats, he's going to hit some home runs. He's going to steal some bases. He's going to be playable in fantasy. It's just whether he's a stud or someone who's, maybe this is just low-hanging fruit, but someone who's kind of like O'Neal Cruz last season where he has a low batting average.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because your friends at Yahoo, where your other home, he already qualifies at third base. De La Cruz does. So he's third base and shortstop, much like Royce Lewis is too. So if you've been hurting at third base for a while, well, have no fear. All of a sudden you got reinforcements at the position. Believe it or not, I'm actually having a harder time finding, usable outfielders in our Yahoo Friends and Family League.
Well, I am in labor. I can every week. It's the same thing. Can I find an outfielder on the waiver wire? So it's the same thing. I agree. I have leagues where my outfield is deep, but not all of them. Outfield is no easier to fill right now than the infield positions for sure.
Yeah. So I'm starting him right away in our league in Friends and Family. I've got him in a couple other leagues where, it's week to week or at least Monday through Thursday. Like I have him in a couple of draft and holds in the NFBC format there. And I won't be able to start him until Friday, but hey, I'm getting him. Maybe that's not such a bad thing either. I get him for a couple days after the fact where I go ahead and get, and I get to get him work his way in there just a little bit.
Yeah, I guess, although it'd be pretty awesome to have him starting tonight. You just don't know what could happen. As a Reds fan, this must just be incredibly exciting for you.
Well, yeah, because we had Andrew Abbott yesterday.
Yes.
And that we had, obviously we already have Matt McLean. They're team fun. They were team not quite as fun over the weekend against Milwaukee, but I mean, I've got lots of reasons to be excited. Encarnacion Strand's going to come up at some point. Cam Collier behind that. Noelvi Marte behind that as well. Not all of them are going to work, but at the same time, I know which game I'm going to be watching. I will definitely be watching that as my primary game.
Yeah, absolutely. There's just so many interesting pieces on this team right now, and it's not impossible for them to win that crummy division. They're 5.5 behind the Pirates, who will probably fade at some point. They're 5 games behind the Brewers, who are by far the most likely candidate, I think, to win the division right now.
Sure. But not prohibitively so.
The Cardinals are last in the National League, so thinking that the Cardinals are going to come back, they could, but they're legitimately last place in the entire National League, not by much, but they are. So, anyways, I don't think the Reds are going to win the division, but it is, as a Reds fan, it is actually conceivable that the Reds could win the division, which I'm sure you or anyone else did not see coming this year.
No, it's mind-boggling.
As a June statement.
Yeah, in fact, I here on the pod maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, someone asked, "Reds can win the division?" I said, "No, no way,
No,
way."
and they won't. I really believe they won't.
Right, but it's fun, and here's the thing: they're going to go. They lost 3 out of 4 to the Brewers. They lost the last game in Boston in that series after winning 5 in a row. They lost 4 in a row, and part of that is, there's depth issues on this team. They have one guy, Spencer Steer. Let's not forget about him. He's also a rookie on this team. He's having a good year, by the way. India is kind of fun to watch, but
absolutely
the bottom half of this roster is bad. I mean, the rotation is Hunter Green, Hurt Lodolo. Abbott yesterday was awesome. Graham Ashcraft has been fading. Do you believe in Ben Lively? We don't believe in Luke Weaver. It's just there's still significant starting pitching issues, and that's not even accounting for the bullpen there. Bullpen on Thursday against Boston. It's a 2-2 game. The Reds rally to get it to 2-2. They bring in a guy they just called up off the street, and he got bombed in the 8th inning. The fact is, he's pitching the 8th inning of a tie game. That tells you where the Reds bullpen's at. They're very thin in the Reds bullpen. There's Sims, there's Diaz, and then it's just cross your fingers and hope and pray.
Yeah, absolutely. The bullpen will be a big part of their downfall. Like you said with the lineup, what's interesting about the lineup is Jake Fraley has played pretty well this year. Like, not amazing, but pretty good. Especially, and he can play against righties. So where the Reds lack is they could probably use another outfielder. Right now, it depends what they're going to do exactly with Steer. He had been playing first base. He played left field yesterday. Let's say he plays first base. They could use an outfielder or two. Those are actually easy things to get at the trade deadline if you did want to pick up a useful veteran outfielder.
Like a Jorge Soler, Jock Peterson type that the Braves did 2 years ago. Yep, they did it. They added 4 outfielders, by the way, that year. And it worked out just fine. They added Eddie Rosario, and they added Adam Duvall that year. And Duvall really worked out well for them. I mean, the fact is, they needed to add outfielders that year. They won without Acuna. That's crazy. Just keep that in mind. Wrap that around your head that they won without Acuna that year. And so you can do that. But I do like the whole let's build a hitting foundation first. That's our floor, and then we'll add the pitching on top. Now that's kind of a modified version because they got Green and Lodolo and Abbott. So they've been trying to build a pitching too. Point is, though, it's not like they were trying to build this whole, okay, we're going to build on young pitchers, and then hopefully we'll get some hitters that click too. They are trying to build on the hitters first, for the most part, and they'll add the pitching on top, hopefully. Now, I don't have a whole lot of faith that they'll do it right or that they'll spend the big bucks they need to spend to do it properly. It's not just adding on top. Don't go get that 4th starter, but actually go out and get an ace. That's the thing that they're going to need to do, especially in that ballpark.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That will be, that's what will eventually be needed to turn the corner in the ballpark. But yeah, I don't know. There's just a scenario where they could go ass backwards into having meaningful September games, and that would be pretty cool. But let's go back to fantasy here on De La Cruz.
Okay.
Is this, let's compare him to Royce Lewis. Who would you rather have rest of the season?
Royce Lewis, I would. I'm going to take the James Anderson path here. And I think De La Cruz is going to go for more in FAAB this weekend than Lewis did last weekend. But I think that, De La Cruz has a higher ceiling, I think. But keep in mind, it's not like Lewis is just this piker. He's just like ham and egger and, he's just going to happen to get playing time. No, he's not that. No. He is a guy that everybody was waiting to get another chance on. He was a number 1 overall pick, for crying out loud. This is a guy that's supposed to be a stud in his own right. And I think he's a little bit more polished. I think he probably will strike out less frequently. I think De La Cruz is going to strike out a lot. We're over 30%. I'd be surprised if he doesn't. But there will be some golden sombreros in his future. But Lewis also, and Lewis is going to run. Now, I don't know if Lewis is actually going to run. That's part of the thing is he's had the torn ACLs twice. I think one was a dislocated kneecap. But point is, he's had these awful, awful injuries to his legs. So we'll see what Lewis does. But I mean, he's a stud athlete too. So I tend to think that they'll both be amazing. But I think this year I'd rather have Lewis. Career, I'd rather have De La Cruz.
Right. I was going to say maybe we could sum it up with Lewis higher floor, De La Cruz higher ceiling for the rest of this year. So maybe depends on what you want to chase that way. Like you said, like Lewis is probably a more polished hitter, probably a better bet to hit for a higher batting average. De La Cruz probably has a higher ceiling for homers and steals. Yeah, I wouldn't say lineup wise. I don't see I don't like the Twins lineup that much. I don't see a huge difference. The home ballpark maybe helps De La Cruz a bit.
Oh, I think it definitely helps De La
Yeah.
Cruz power wise. Maybe not batting
sure.
average as much, but
So I just think, I think it's probably it's probably what, like I say, what you're going for. If you need steals even more, it would be De La Cruz. I mean, no one's really making the decision between the two. What you made a point. You said you think that De La Cruz will go for more this weekend on average than Lewis went for last weekend. Do you think that's would have happened even if Lewis hadn't had that fall in a Sunday game?
I do. Well, actually, the fall maybe not. I don't know. But you were saying off air, and Nick Whalen, my co-host on Sirius XM, was saying on air that they were saving their powder for the bid on De La Cruz instead of Lewis. And you didn't get Lewis this weekend. I actually didn't get any Lewis this weekend. I have him in friends and family, but that's also because we don't bid. And I just did a first come first serve thing. I have all the young guys on this team, by the way. I don't know if it's going to work out, but I have Francisco Alvarez. I swooped in on De La Cruz. I swooped in on Lewis. I have a lot of that going on. I have Yuri Perez in that league. We'll see. I'm a middle of the pack team. I also drafted Jordan Walker, and I drafted who else did who else did I go with team fun on this one here? Oh, I also did Volpe on that league too. So a lot of youngsters in that team. How am I not winning, Fred? Maybe because everybody else is just me. But anyways, Cody Senga says hello from Sunday. Also, is reasons why I'm not winning. But
Anthony Volpe and his 193 average also say hello. Although he's been a respectable fantasy.
I was just gonna say, okay, overall. He's hurting me in one category, but he's helping me all the others.
Yeah, he's been fine in the others. I mean, not awesome. He's probably in RBIs and runs. Actually, he's probably on pace for like 70 of each. It's not great for what he cost in a lot of drafts. By the time we got to the end of draft season, that's not very good. But anyways,
one more thing, fantasy-wise, on De La Cruz.
Yeah.
And that's him versus other shortstops for the rest of the year. Because I think that's really the important thing, right? Is like, how do we really value him? So I'll use our earned auction values as kind of a proxy. And obviously, we're obviously not going to go. You're not going to spend. You'd rather have Wander Franco, I'd say. Rather have Bo Bichette.
Yep.
Would you rather have you? I know you're not huge on Bobby Witt. He hasn't hit for average.
Bobby Witt.
Yeah, 10 homers, 19 stolen bases. I mean, he's having a rough batting average and on base season, but fantasy wise, he's having a great season.
I don't think De La Cruz is ready to do that yet. Well,
Francisco Lindor having a bad batting average here, hitting .213, but he does have 10 homers, 40 RBI, 33 runs, and 4 stolen bases. Lindor or De La Cruz for the rest of the year?
Lindor. I don't think that one's we're still not close for me.
Okay. The funny thing is, okay, you'd rather have Corey Seager, I presume?
Oh, by a mile. 1,000 OPS, Corey Seager.
Yes.
Everybody said would be helped by the shift ban, and so far they've been right, Corey Seager.
Yes. Yeah. Trey Turner homered twice yesterday, but was struggling beforehand. Trey Turner, obviously.
Yeah, by a mile. Yeah.
Okay. How about Nico Horner or Elly De La Cruz?
In a vacuum, Nico Horner.
Okay.
I would say like Nico Horner's on pace for about 40 steals. A little bit of power, maybe like 10 homers. He always hits for average, Horner. Like 285 this year, career 279.
Okay.
So yeah, I have a lot of Nico Horner. He was someone who I really liked at his draft value, just on the expectation that this year he could be what he was last year, but then this year he would hit leadoff. And so far, he had a little IL stint, but so far that's pretty much what's happened. Like he's just on pace this year for a little bit more as far as plate appearances, and therefore, a lot more steals. But that's a new environment. But a little bit more with the counting stats because of the better lineup spot.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. I was going to do one more. Xander Bogaerts doesn't really run a ton. Has slumped after a good start. hurt his wrist a little bit the other
Yeah.
day, said that he's not going to need surgery now or long term, but the fact that he had to invoke that scares me.
I'm very worried about Xander Bogaerts. So you've hit on a whole separate story for me. 546 OPS in May. He saved some fantasy value in May by stealing 5 bases, but like he really seems like someone who's playing through an injury. I would take De La Cruz, and I have a hunch if you go deeper on that list, I might take some other players over De La Cruz, but I am very worried about Bogaerts.
Yeah. David Donahoe wants one more here. Donahue, excuse me. Jeremy Pena versus Elly De La Cruz.
Oh, that's a good one. I'll take the security of Pena.
Okay.
He's just solid. Like, I just feel like Pena's probably, I don't know, 20 homers, 15 steals, something like that this year. Good offense. You know, he could score 85 runs, 90 runs, maybe even 90 runs. I feel like that Astros offense is getting it together too a little bit around him. I don't think he'll necessarily play that much better, but I do think maybe Altuve's kind of day to day again, which is concerning, but maybe there's a point at some point this season where that team really has everyone on the offense. Maybe Michael Brantley gets back at some point and just makes the lineup a little deeper. And so I'll take Pena.
Okay, fair enough.
Because I just think I'm interested in De La Cruz and I'll put in bids on him. But like there is a scenario where he just kind of falls flat on his face.
There is indeed.
Yeah.
So you're a little bit more circumspect, I think, I would presume, than more the industry and certainly a lot of the playing populace out there.
Yeah, like I'm talking like 1-for-1 trades in a vacuum. You know, like you say Pena versus De La Cruz. If I was in 10th in my league, I'll take De La Cruz because he can bring me back, whereas Pena's probably not going to. But just kind of in a vacuum, 1-for-1 trades. That's how I feel. Yeah, and same with the FAAB bidding. Like if I need an offensive savior, I think you got to throw a lot of FAAB at De La Cruz. If I don't, then I put in a competitive bid, but maybe I don't go all out for him. I don't know. This De La Cruz thing and Andrew Abbott, actually it's Reds Day. This De La Cruz thing and Abbott have really got me thinking about, I feel like there has been such a run on expensive starting pitcher. This has been like, am I wrong? Like there's never been a year like this where it feels like every week almost there's like a $200 to $300 starting pitcher.
Yeah, there's
so many of them, Bybee and Allen and Miller, and like it just keeps, and the other Miller, like it just keeps going, and they're all fetching big bids. So this got me thinking, and now we had Royce Lewis, and now we've got De La Cruz and Andrew Abbott, and I got me thinking like how much FAAB do you need to save? Like how low can you go? Because I have some leagues where everybody's FAAB is pretty depleted.
Yeah, well, I think that's a great topic. So in previous years, when I've been doing this with Scott Genstad, he likes to keep $75 to $100 for September alone.
Okay.
You know, so 7.5% to 10% of your FAAB budget. That's a little more granular in $1,000 budget to begin with. I think when you have $100 budget like we have in labor, I mean, I almost want to keep a little bit more just so I can get some targeted guys in case I need to at the very end. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's tougher in labor too, because just, I don't know, maybe it's only $7 or $8 in September, but because you get less of a long-term impact, but it's also more targeted. You get an injury in September and you have no FAAB. What are you going to do?
And, you know, if you're competing with someone in September and there's you need saves and
they're not going to trade with you. Yeah.
You know, I was going to say, even in the NFBC leagues, you need saves and you're competing with someone. If you have the FAAB hammer, like closers emerge every year in September. Like
yes,
every year in September, there are cheap saves on the waiver wire. And I say cheap, I mean a guy you can get early in September for $40 who can get you saves for the whole month of September. Like that could be the difference between winning or losing your league. So I agree with Scott. Like I like to save some for September. I had traditionally felt like I like to have at the beginning of July, so that's kind of the midpoint season, say at least 300 left. I wonder if that's maybe too conservative and I don't need 300. I don't know. These are things I've been thinking about. It just feels like it does have to go in step with your league too a little bit. I understand that. Like if your whole league's broke, maybe you can get a little more broke.
Yeah.
Because you need the hammer, a bit of a hammer, but you don't need that much. You don't need a sledgehammer. If everyone else in your league on July 1st has $150 left, you don't need 350. Like you can have a pretty good hammer at 270, something like that, right? So I think it is league dependent a bit, but it got me thinking, like how low can you go say bidding on De La Cruz or Andrew Abbott or whatever this weekend, like how low can you go in your FAAB in the middle of June? And then it's just too low. Like can you go down to $100 left? Can you go down to $200 left? Like what's too low? If you're not like just last ditch, like I'm in 9th place. If this doesn't work, I don't care.
Yeah. I'll give you a good example of a league that spent a lot of money. Scarf, 15-team league. We drafted, most of us were there in person. There's a couple that didn't. The leader in FAAB has 547 in FAAB left out of 1,000. Okay. I've got 332. I'm in 4th in FAAB. There's one guy that's out. Another's at 37. Another's at 47, 48. So this has been a very aggressive league. I love that 15-teamer, and only one person has half their FAAB left. That's pretty crazy for sitting here on Tuesday, June 6th. I mean, that's really crazy.
It is. So I think you can play that league. Is your team doing pretty well?
I'm 4th. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You are doing well. You're in the high.
And I used I did. That was the league where I spent up 2 weeks ago. And who did I get? I can't even remember who I got a mere 2 weeks ago. Oh, I got Bobby Miller, 253 to 243, because I knew I had the most FAAB left in the league. I was like, I was going to go a little bit more, cautiously. I was like, wait a second. If everybody else is low already, why not be aggressive here? And I'm glad I did. But it did cost me like Royce Lewis last week. It might cost me Elly this week. We'll see.
Yeah, with these
who knows? I may be bid aggressively, guys. You may have to spend more than my full budget. Just letting you know.
Yeah, with all these big bids, you really have to pick your spots. You can't get Royce Lewis and De La Cruz and Bobby Miller, like if your league's good, you can't get all of them. And I got, Logan Allen, like you can't get all of them. So you have to pick your spots. So yeah, I've been thinking like, how low can you go? I think it is league dependent. I think it is standings dependent.
Yeah.
Like how you're doing, if you're in it for the long haul, do you really need De La Cruz? Do you need offense or do you need pitching? I have teams that could really use De La Cruz. And then I also have teams that don't. Well, they could use, they can all use them, but they would be maybe better served trying Andrew Abbott, who won't be as expensive, I think, as De La Cruz, but
no,
better,
of course not.
But would be better. Well, you say, of course not, but he's starting again this week, right?
I know. It's like Bryce Miller 2.0. Sorry,
right.
in New Jersey, Dave. I know who's hurting with Bryce Miller right now.
So let's say we had let's say 6 shutout or something on the weekend. He becomes all of a sudden, I think, very expensive, like based on what these other pitchers went for. All of a sudden, he becomes maybe a $200 pitcher.
Yeah, so, I would advise against that. Listening to James Anderson today on the Sirius XM fantasy broadcast, he was talking about how, first of all, he was a little bit of the beneficiary in Double-A of the tacky ball that the Southern League's using. He was facing a Brewers team that A, struggles on the road and B, struggles against lefties. So it was a kind of a perfect storm. He faces the Cardinals in St. Louis this weekend. So if he cruises there, it'll be tough. And the Reds have a sordid history against the Cardinals, especially in St. Louis. Although St. Louis is their own is the definition of sordid right now. Not the city, the team. The city's just fine, but as far as I know, just something to watch for there as far as that goes. Anyways, I don't want to make this. I kind of do want to make this Reds cast, but it's not Reds cast. We have other stuff to talk about, and unfortunately, that was the good news. Now we have the bad news. Jacob deGrom got placed on the 60-day IL yesterday. And yesterday they were saying, they weren't saying, but they were mostly saying it wasn't pitching related. He was actually I think he was at either the birth of his child or something else over the weekend. So he wasn't even pitching over the weekend, but they wanted to force all, but they did say there's going to be more imaging. There was a report from Evan Carter. Evan Carter is a baseball player. Evan Grant, who said there's more imaging coming up this week. Well, this week turned out to be today, and it showed significant more damage. He's undergoing Tommy John surgery, obviously out all of this year and half of next year, probably out all of next year too. The way is we've been going 18-month schedules for rehabs from Tommy John surgery these days.
Yeah, I wonder, like you said, like at first when he went on the 60-day IL, it was like, oh, this is no big deal. He's okay. He's gonna be fine. This is just he's going to be out till the end of June and blah, blah, blah. And now he's out for the season and beyond. And you're like, oh, it's the Rangers, but it feels like maybe he brought the Mets communications department over with him. And the signing, I was like, didn't we just do this with the Mets, where everything would be like, I think of that meme with the dog with the dirt burning room around him, everything's fine.
Yep.
So that's what I kind of think of. So yeah, so deGrom's out for this year and probably all next year. Maybe if the Rangers were good next year, he can make it back late next year as a reliever or something like that, and help them. But yeah, when he comes back from this injury, so he was turning 35 in a couple of weeks when he comes back from his injury, let's say it's at the start of the 2025, that's scary to say, season, he will be 36 and like 2/3 kind of thing. Like, it's a pretty old pitcher when he comes back. I feel like Jacob deGrom getting old snuck up on me a little bit because he missed so much time with his injuries. But yeah, so I mean, super crummy news from a fantasy perspective. He's just a sure drop. He's a drop. It sucks if there's no reclaim in your leagues. He ended up being a terrible draft pick. You and I talked about how I took the discount on him in labor and took him at pick 60. I got 6 starts. So
five of which were great.
Yeah.
One
really
not
good
so
starts.
Great, but yeah.
I got 2 wins. Like, it wasn't good. I still say I'd take what I got from Jacob deGrom over like a pitcher who blew me up, like an Alek Manoah.
Like someone we might be talking about in a second.
I mean, he's the extreme case, but for sure. But either way, it didn't work out. You knew in the end, like myself in that league, anyone in any league, you knew the risk going in. Just like the Rangers knew the risks. The Rangers, I mean, we talk about fantasy, like the Rangers are a legit contender this year, whose offense, in my opinion, is playing a little bit over their heads, but their offense is crushing it right now. Their other pitchers are pitching pretty well. Like, the difference between having deGrom and not having deGrom in the second half and in the playoffs, that could be the difference between that, like, them going to the World Series or them maybe not even making the playoffs or whatever. Like, he's so incredibly valuable to them. But from a fantasy perspective, yeah, it's a drop. It sucks. You don't draft him next year. We'll talk about him in 2025. And just when I say the year 2025, that just feels so crazy and so far away.
It does.
Yeah.
Short term, that means Dane Dunning remains in the rotation. Dane Dunning has been, for the most part, very good. The thing about Dane Dunning is he hasn't allowed a homer all season long. 48 innings, no homers allowed. That's not going to last, but he allowed 20 last year, for instance. But yeah, it goes a long way to explaining 206, 104, but it also illustrates he's been good. He's not a miss bats got it type of guy though. 32 Ks in 48 innings. So you actually are counting on quality of contact against him. That is the one downside to that. But the thing is, depth now becomes a big issue for this team. You have Eovaldi, Gray. I mean, their 5 is good. Eovaldi, Gray, Perez, Heaney, and Dunning. Perez has gotten better lately. Was pretty decent last night. Andrew Heaney has been a lot better lately than he was earlier. But there's just they're very razor thin margins right now. I don't see a whole lot of help in AAA either. So what you're looking at now is they're metting another pitcher at the deadline. Yeah,
that rotation actually, to me, on a team that already has an offense that's playing well and a good an offense that's playing well and a good record so far. So they're kind of just need to hold serve the rest of the way. They don't have to come back on anyone. It's a fine rotation. Like just as far as like it's deep. Like Eovaldi gives them quality starts, like you said. Perez, Gray, Heaney's up and down, but overall he's pretty good. Dunning, I agree with you. I think there's regression coming for Dunning. He just doesn't miss a lot of bats. He's been pretty lucky with BABIP so far. Especially he's been lucky with the home runs. But even with some regression, he's a different type of pitcher this year. Like, he's just not walking anyone or not walking near as many batters, and he's not striking anyone out. He's just letting them put the ball in play and seeing what happens. I think there'll be some regression coming, but whatever. If he can, from the Rangers' perspective, if he can be a useful 5-inning starter as their 5th starter, that's pretty good. So, yeah, you're right. They'll probably need another starter by the deadline. So are a lot of teams. They're going to be hard to find. Maybe their bullpen's interesting. It's got, Will Smith's been fine. Brock Burke's okay. Leclerc's not great, but Leclerc's not hopeless. He has his moments. I don't know. I think the Rangers, I thought they were going to turn into a pumpkin at some point. Now I think that they can hang around.
Well, I mean, it's not just that they're scoring a ton of runs, most runs in baseball, but their run prevention's really good. They've actually allowed fewer runs than the Rays. Now they've played a couple fewer games, so that has something to do with it. But I mean, the fact is, if there's regression, it's going to be like on a team-wide basis for it to really matter. It's not just Dunning. It has to be Eovaldi. It has to be others that are falling back because they've been pitching well lately too. Now, I think some of that is they have good defense. Some of that is, their starting pitchers are going deep so that their underbelly of their team, their bullpen isn't is exposed as badly.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I think you're right. I think there could be a domino effect there at some point if things do turn south for them a bit. But like I said, I've become a bit more of a believer in this team. I didn't like the lineup. I told you at the beginning of the year, actually, in the spring training, I thought the lineup was just top heavy. I felt like Simeon, Seager, good, low, fine, but I didn't think Garcia, just really low on base percentage. He's been better than expected. He's better from a fantasy perspective, I think, a little bit than a real life perspective. He's someone who's really benefited by how many runs the team scored overall. And then, but he's just not a guy who gets on base a lot. But anyways, they've had some guys play maybe at the top end. I think the best way for me to put it, at the top end of what they can do, like Garcia, Josh Young, Jonah Heim, for example, has really broken out.
Well, yeah.
Getting Mitch Garver back helps. Yeah.
I was just going to say, they're getting all these contributions. Josh Young is at 855 OPS. I mean, that's great. Robbie Grossman hasn't been very good, but Heim's been over 800. Ezekiel Duran has 140 at-bats at an 879 OPS. Leody Taveras has 161 at-bats at 793. Taveras was hurt at the beginning of the year. We're like, oh, yeah, what about Bubba Thompson? Bubba Thompson could win that job. No, could not. Taveras has been markedly better. And good for the Rangers. But the point is, they're getting those bottom of the lineup contributions. They're 8 deep, for the most part. There 9 deep some days. So that's huge. Even Travis Jankowski is slugging 410. He's hitting 301. I mean, he's it's almost all batting average as far as slug goes. But he's at a 376 on base. That plays.
Yeah, absolutely.
Plays pretty well.
Bench outfielder with his speed, absolutely. So I think what I was afraid was going to happen is that pitchers to get past the top part of the lineup and then just cruise for a couple innings, and Young being better than expected, Heim being better, Taveras, Duran. It's made it. Grossman's not better, not good, but there's also not a total sink. So, anyways, it's made the lineup have appropriate length, and then you got the studs at the top. It's good. It's good. I'm happy for them. Good for the Rangers turning it around.
Yeah, I am too.
Yeah, and too bad about deGrom, but they took their shot. I know Ken Rosenthal put out an article shortly before we started recording about how this will play in his contract and the clauses and things like that. I'll probably read that later. Doesn't matter from a fantasy perspective, so I decided I'd just read it after we recorded today.
Sure, exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of the belief of go get your money.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like, oh no, a billionaire owner will just have like pocket change. That contract had to be insured in some sort of way. I'm not really feeling too awful for them. But anyhow, we got to take care of some business. First, we're on the Blue Wire Network. We thank them as always. Here are their ads. All right. We also have a new sponsor. We friends at BatFlip. So let's let you know about them. BatFlip is the team shuffling baseball card game. It's a gamer's love letter to baseball. Step into the role of the manager, build your team, shuffle it up, and deploy it in an action-packed 3-inning game. Each of the over 140 player cards is unique with its own special stats and abilities. Each team has its own power and strategy. Flex your financial muscles as the New York Moneybags. Bunt and steal your way to victory as the Sioux City Small Ballers. Or deliver takeout slides and headhunting pitches as the Detroit Dirtbags. 12 teams in all. BatFlip was designed by avid fantasy baseball players and made its pre-release debut at First Pitch Arizona in 2021. It's been played by the likes of Ron Chandler, Eno Saris, Ray Murphy, and Phil Goyette. Did you grow up collecting baseball cards? Do you collect them now? Then BatFlip is for you. Do you like collectible card games like Magic the Gathering or the Pokemon card game? Do you like online card games like Hearthstone or Marvel Snap? Then BatFlip is for you. BatFlip features fast-paced strategic card play and endless replayability. Utilize your best players and special abilities at the most pivotal moments. And then, when the time is just right, swing for the fences and flip that bat. Order your copy now at batflipgame.com. That's batflipgame.com. Big thanks to BatFlip for joining us as a sponsor for the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. All right. We got it. Let's rip the Band-Aid off. It's Alek Manoah time. He got sent down to Dunedin today, to their training facility. The easy and often made comparison is to Roy Halladay. Is this comparison apt?
No. Roy Halladay is one of the best pitchers of our lifetime. Like, he's a Hall of Famer. So no, it's not apt at all. But
that happened to Halladay, though, is the point.
It did. But I'm just saying, I'm not expecting like it fixed Halladay, it's going to fix Manoah. Like, it's just, It's also like whatever year, 30 years apart, 20 years apart. So totally different. It's not like he's even worked with the same people or anything like that.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah. But this is though, like a mess. Yeah. This Manoah thing is a mess. So first of all, I couldn't believe Scott was talking on Sunday about, on the podcast about some of the Manoah ads where in leagues where he was dropped.
Right.
I could not believe, like, maybe I'm biased because I watch all of his starts, but I was like, holy, people are spending.
That's because they're betting. That's on the name Manoah, and obviously not based on any results. He also was dropped in some leagues at the same time. Yes. So he was kind of in that middle zone. There's no middle zone now.
But to spend a lot, like to spend $20 on Manoah in $1,000 FAAB league, just to be like, okay, sure, the name value, I'll grab him, I'll put him on my bench, see what happens the next couple weeks. Sure. Also, I was reading, I'm not going to be able to give credit. Someone in my timeline was saying how many main event leagues he was started in for the 2-start week this week.
62%.
Oh, that's painful. At least they don't get a second start, because I don't think it would have gone in much better.
I have one.
It would have gone better,
by the way.
Pardon me.
I have one of those leagues, and I also had to start him in the 12-team RotoWire Online Championship because I'm a big dummy.
I guess in a desperation move, if a team's way down in the standings, you say, "Hey, it's 2 starts.
It was the 2 starts.
I need the 10 strikeouts or whatever, and I need." Yeah. Anyways, it's actually, we're looking back on his stat line. It's remarkable that he had a 7-inning shutout at Yankee Stadium about I don't know, like 8 starts ago, and then things just went downhill from there. I mean, even I don't know, that start he still only struck out 5 in that start. He's probably got some BABIP flack, but
do you hold on in a 15-teamer?
No,
just to see if they work it out, they fix it?
No, I don't think so. I think the only way you hang on is if you really don't have anyone to drop them for. Like, maybe you're in a 15-teamer, if your team's really healthy, so you don't really need the bench spots, and you look on waivers and there's nothing. Like, there's really nothing. You try on Andrew Abbott or whatever, but there's really ends up being nothing, and all you would drop him for was just a reliever, and you don't even need the reliever in your lineup. I guess I think I would drop him. I think I would drop him just to grab like a backup closer who's a good pitcher, right? Like, would I just drop him for? I was trying to think like a Nick Anderson. Like, maybe I might just drop him for someone like that. Do you think I'm too harsh on that?
No, I don't think you are.
Like, what would have to happen? Like, it would be such a dramatic change for this to get turned around. He's not a high strikeout pitcher typically. I guess he's okay. Like, right, going into this year, like, I guess the strikeout rates the previous 2 years were okay. They're fine. I guess they're fine. I may have been a little too hard on him. I don't know. It's just, he's someone who the advanced stats had said for the past 2 years of his first 2 years of his career that he was out pitching his peripherals. He's out pitching his skill set. And I mean, no one thought it would crater like this, but
right. Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm working on an article about how much should we have seen this coming. And the thing is, we should have seen it a little bit. I'm on the expected ERA. The difference between ERA and expected ERA. He was the second biggest gainer as far as it goes. His ERA, Manoah's ERA last year was 2.24. Manoah's expected ERA last year was 3.33. That's the second biggest difference.
Yeah,
and that's second biggest difference qualified as 450 batted balls in play events. So I'm talking starters that were starters the whole year. And so that's a pretty big difference. Number 1 on the list, Zach Greinke. He's having a downfall this year. Number 3, Cal Quantrill, really falling apart. Number 5, Logan Gilbert. Okay, maybe not falling apart as much, but he's had some rough outings lately. Number 6, Adam Wainwright, another guy who hasn't been good since coming back. Pitched better yesterday, but not great. Martin Perez, his opponent, another guy we expected to fall back a little bit, and he has fallen back a little bit. Kyle Wright got hurt before we had a chance to really test that out. Logan Webb, Johnny Cueto,
Logan
hurt
Webb's
all
been
year.
good this year. Yeah.
Madison Bumgarner, I mean, Madison Bumgarner was bad even without being lucky. He was 488, but he's supposed to be 553. Point is, there were some differences there. You look at expected batting average of Alek Manoah. Last year, his batting average allowed was 202. His expected batting average was 224. Still really good.
Still really good.
Yeah.
Right. So I have no shares of Manoah. So but like, I don't even feel like dunking on the people who do, because if you just took his xERA and said, okay, I'll make that his projected ERA for this year, and then maybe even said, okay, offense is going to go a bit up, so that xERA you cited was about 3.3, so I'll make it 3.5. And then you said, okay, I'll take his whip. The last year it was 0.99. That's ridiculous. Let's push that up a bit, make it 115, something like that, right? Because you said the expected stats say the batting average should have gone up, but not like 220 something. Still really good. So okay,
so there's more to it than that, basically, is what you're saying.
Oh, not even comparable, right? Like, so no, what I was going to say is if you put his projected stats in during draft season as a 350 ERA and about a 115 whip, and then you put him, he was a workhorse last year. So let's say he threw 196 2/3 innings. Like, so let's say you said, okay, well, at those ratios, maybe he throws 190 innings again, and then let's say he strikes out about 180 batters again. All of a sudden, he belongs actually right where he was drafted. So it's like, I don't feel like dunking on the people who took him and saying, like, see, you knew regression was coming. Like, regression was coming, but it wasn't predicted to come like this.
Right. He was drafted at his regressed price, his purported regressed price. I got him end of the 5th round in a main event, I think it was. I got to double check on that, check my stats on that. But point is, it was a bit of a discount. I was happy.
Yeah.
I was very happy.
Yes.
And Tim and I were like, yeah, we got Manoah. It's our guy from last year that we had in both of our main events. We're like, yeah, baby, we got our guy. And he was good to us last year. It was the same point I was making with Julio Urias. It's like, we got everything we expected out of him, and yet he was going much later. Why is that? It's because of the expected stats. Well, turns out the expected stats were right in that case. I mean, even still, the expected stats never, portended anything like this. But going back to finish that part of the conversation. Yeah, we got Manoah at 3. We got him at 514. We actually got Shane Bieber in 314. It's mistakes were made. But point is, it just kind of illustrates though, like, okay, I got a regress price on him. I got him at pick 74 for a guy that had a 2.24 ERA or whatever he had. I mean, that's a way regress price.
Absolutely. So I don't think you feel bad about that. And I know some people will say, like, oh, you just take him off your draft list if you think he's going to regress, but I don't really see that. I think you can project him conservatively. I had him just a little too conservative so that there were always players around where he would go. But like, I feel the same as you. Like, if he had fallen another round in some of my drafts, I probably would have taken him. He just didn't. Around his pick, I liked some other pitchers better. I don't know. In the MLB.com article about Manoah released last night after his start, there's a comment that stuck in my head from there. If you want to be a Manoah optimist, the comment was, and I'm paraphrasing, but it was, small hinges open big doors. And it was just a reminder that sometimes little things can cause huge problems or huge improvements.
Which goes to a comment I saw in the chat here from Roach52, says the pitch clock is real.
For him, maybe that's it. I mean, he's one of the biggest pitchers in baseball. Like, maybe he's fatigued. Maybe he's struggling to keep up with the pitch clock. Maybe the pitch clock is just causing him to not have the same, like, he's almost walked as many batters already as he did last season. So maybe
that wouldn't explain yesterday though, because he couldn't get out of the first inning yesterday. So
yes. I mean, no, yeah, for sure. So,
it was in trouble from the word go.
Yeah. So I mean, so maybe it is. Maybe it can be, if you want to be optimistic. And I'm not going to be that optimistic because I'm saying drop him. But if you want to be optimistic, it would be the hope that he goes down to the Florida Complex League. He makes 3 or 4 starts, and he's back around the beginning of July with some improvements. Like, he's lost almost a mile off his fastball. Maybe he can regain that velocity down there. Maybe he can get his slider back to where it was as far as effectiveness goes. But like, the hinges comment just got me thinking, like, maybe it's just that. Maybe he recovers the effectiveness of his slider, and all of a sudden he's good after July 1st. I don't know. I just think in a regular bench league. In a Tout Wars league, I might keep him with unlimited ILs. A 6-man bench, unlimited ILs. I got to be able to have room to hold someone on my bench who's just in the minors right now. I think in that league, maybe I keep him. Yeah. That league's effectively deeper. It's almost like having like a 10-man bench with all your IL slots. In an NFBC, though, I think I'm out. Like I said, like I was trying to decide, would I just drop him for Adbert Alzolay, Nick Anderson, someone like that, someone who's a really good reliever. I don't know. That would be my borderline. I think I'd pick him up for anyone starting in the majors who I just thought like, oh, this guy might have potential. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm just dropping him.
Yeah, and let's face it, even Roy Halladay, who was fixed, wasn't fixed in a day. It took a while.
No, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not like if you were playing fantasy baseball back then, which was I playing fantasy baseball back then? I might have been, actually. I think I was. Yeah, it's not like he went down and was gone like a month and then came right back up and started pitching great. Like this could be a long road for Manoah.
So it was in 2000.
I was playing fantasy baseball.
2001.
Yeah.
And he had 3 different stops. He went to Dunedin, then Tennessee, then Syracuse. And this was after spending some time even at the training complex too.
Yeah.
But he made 20 appearances in the minors, 7 of which were starts. The Dunedin ones were all relief appearances, but he did throw 22 innings in that. So it wasn't like, 2 weeks later he's fixed or a month later he was fixed. We're talking long term here. So your best case scenario is 3 months from now they fix Manoah. Maybe it's shorter than that, but point is it's a while. So
that's where I feel like, I don't know. I just think it's I'm guilty sometimes of being too much of an optimist, and I just think, and I'm a Jays fan, so I'd love to believe that he goes down for a month and then comes back around Canada Day, and then is at least useful again. But it's probably not. It's probably not the most. It's not the most likely outcome. So for that reason, I think you just drop him, and maybe you have to drop him this weekend for anyone, even if it is Nick Anderson, just to get him off your roster. Like maybe just to get you away from him, so that then the next weekend you're like, I'll drop Nick Anderson for this interesting batter or this platoon guy who's got some good matchups this week. Like maybe you need to get rid of Manoah just to purge it in an NFBC type league, just so you start to make yourself start to stream the spots, so you find someone better.
Yeah. We were asked about Sandy Alcantara. He was 13th last year in that difference. Urias was 12th. So you can see some big names in there. I thought I'd go and take a look at this year a little bit to see. Like, it's a little early. So I set but my methodology here was setting at a minimum of 100 batted ball events, which barely squeaks in our leader here. And this is not a category you want to lead. But our leader is none other than Tony Gonsolin, who pitches tonight. ERA is 177 going into the start. Expected ERA is 483. To be, to illustrate the difference, that's almost 3 times as big as last season's full season leader. How much of a big gulf? I mean, of course, you got a smaller sample. Things tend to correct over the course of a season. It's long enough. So be wary of Gonsolin's start. I know he's been able to defy the numbers before in the past, but he's not a 177 ERA pitcher. I think we all know that. Not especially with the Dodgers defense being what it is. It's not as good as it was last year because of the shift limitations, et cetera, et cetera. Regression is coming, but soon.
Yeah. I mean, this is an enormous gap. Gonsolin is someone who's always managed to outperform, whether you want to make it his xERA, whether you want to make it his FIP. Like it's common for him to outperform those by a sizable margin. Like most seasons in his career, he has outperformed his xERA by a run, basically, if you round it off. And same with his FIP, by about a run. In his career, it's over a run, the difference. So sure, he can outperform it by a run, but this year he's outperforming it by like 3 runs. So yeah, the regression is probably coming at some point. If you're an advanced stats guy, you will never have Tony Gonsolin on your team.
Right.
Probably. Just like the advanced stats guys never had Kyle Hendricks on their team.
Exactly the guy I was going to bring up. Yeah.
He's the poster boy for it. You managed to win money, defy odds, and win money off Kyle Hendricks for several years before, you paid the piper.
Yeah. Bryce Elder, 3rd on the list.
Yep.
192 real life ERA, 416 expected ERA. Dane Dunning, we talked about him earlier, 4th on the list. 206 to 407. John Gray, 6 on the list, 250 to
Yep.
439. Framber Valdez. Don't tell me that. I like Framber.
Framber Valdez is just a guy who's like out of his mind right now.
Yeah.
And is actually good. Like he's good, but not what he is right now. Like even when he regresses, he might still be the 20th best starter.
And the thing is, I like doing this because even though your pitchers I like on this list, it tells me maybe cold-hearted reality might be settling in. McClanahan is at 9th on the list, 202. Actual ERA expected 359. Expected ERA, by the way, is generated from the quality content plus Ks plus walks, basically. Mm-hmm. Logan Allen, Sonny Gray, Christian Javier also high on this list.
Yeah.
So if you want to go the opposite route, who's been a little bit unlucky, first of all, there's a lot of bad pitchers here. So like Fujinami's been unlucky, but you're never going to roster him. So I'm trying to find someone that you would roster. Like Tanner Houck, maybe. Graham Ashcraft, unlucky, but unlucky only to a point. His real life ERA is 6.64. It's only supposed to be 5.12. Trying to find someone who's supposed to have a good ERA, but is still unlucky. Nestor Cortez should have a 3.74, has a 5.16. He's already done regress there. I mean, he's someone that we thought, Fred, that Nestor Cortez is someone that we thought would regress, but man, he's regressed too far. He's swung the other side of the pendulum.
A bit of a poor man's Manoah, I guess. Poor man's if we mean he hasn't been he was supposed to regress but didn't regress as much. So if you were in a regression pool, he would be a poor man's Manoah.
Manoah's getting what he deserves, by the way. He's not been unlucky at all, according to this metric at least.
No, for sure. Cortez has been worse and unlucky.
Yeah. Joe Musgrove's another one. 3.46 is expected ERA. He's at 4.71. He pitched in Mexico, guys. That was one start that's really single-handedly just screwing with his ratios right now. So
because he was also hurt. So he's only made 7 starts.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the one start, he has some other starts that weren't great, but if you take that one start away, his ERA, just me quickly ballparking, it's probably more like 4, something like that, which is not that far off his xERA.
Yeah. So kind of fun with some numbers here a little bit.
A
couple of noteworthy starts last night. Blake Snell had a good start. He's actually had 3 good starts in a row, very quietly.
Yeah, I'm still not totally feeling this. The walks are still there at a very high level. So in those 3 starts, which comprise 17 innings, he's walked 10 batters. 10 batters in 17 innings. I just feel like in those games, he has faced the Nats, the Marlins, and the Cubs. I know all those teams aren't completely awful, but none of them are very good, especially offensively. So he has managed to strike out a fair amount of batters, but basically he's faced 3 lineups that, in my opinion, can't really punish him for his poor control skills. He did have, before that, he had a bad start against Boston. They're a pretty good lineup. And then he had two quality starts in a row against the Dodgers. So, good for him. I don't know.
So that's actually 5 out of 6 then.
Yeah, absolutely. He's had quality starts in 5 out of 6. Yeah. He's given up more than 3 runs in one of his last 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. One of his last 9 starts. He's given up more than 3 runs. So he's been usable because he does strike a decent amount of batters out in all of those starts. I think Blake Snell is usable. I don't think we're at the point where Blake Snell is awesome again.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
So many walks.
Guess where he makes his next start?
Colorado.
Correct.
This weekend.
Correct.
So if you used him this week, which I think a lot of people probably did, you got something good. So we'll see how hopefully the Colorado. But if he walks 3 or 4 batters in Colorado, it's probably going to be a big problem. His walk rate, just like Blake Snell's never been great at not walking batters. But this is another level.
Indeed.
This year, this is his worst walk rate ever. 2 years ago, he struggled and he had a bad walk rate. This is his worst walk rate ever. So he's still just got to get that under control.
Fred, tell me a story about Aaron Nola.
Oh, I was not sure if maybe we were going to bury this now and save me the humiliation because
it's just humiliation. Oh no,
it's not humiliation, but it's not. It doesn't paint me in a great light. I thought maybe Jacob deGrom and Elly De La Cruz saved me from this story, but so here's my story. We did lament your drafting of Alek Manoah and told you that it wasn't your fault.
Oh, thanks.
So this is going back to draft season story, and I'm trying to learn a lesson from this. And you can tell me what you think of this lesson, because this is something people talk about in draft season. Is it a problem if you get too many shares of the same player, especially an elite player, someone who's like getting a whole bunch of a round 20 guy, like whatever, he doesn't turn out, whatever. But so I drafted Spencer Strider, who has turned out to be pretty good in my first draft, which was Labor, and again in my second draft, which was Tout Wars. And I had
you got a discount on Strider then for sure in Labor, because you were at 1.1.
Yeah, so
no
I got him on
you're doing well.
Well, it was the typical, right? Strider really rose during main event season, but up to that point, like he was kind of going like more like round 2-3 turn, because a lot of starters there weren't very many starters going until late in round 2 up until then. So anyway, so I took Strider in those 2 drafts, and then it was time to start NFBC leagues. And my first NFBC draft, again, I was picking near the 2-3 turn, and it came to my turn, and Strider it might have even gone around my turn. It might have been early in round 3. I can't remember. Either way, it was around the 2-3 turn. Strider was available again. And then I start thinking, well, I've got 2 Striders. He's my ace in both leagues. Like, what if Strider doesn't have, he's only limited experience. Like, what if he gets hurt, whatever. I think I'll pass on Strider, and I'll take Aaron Nola this time. Because even though I have Strider ranked higher than Nola, I think I had Strider as my number 3 starter this year. I think I went Burns and Cole in some order, and then Strider. So I said, well, I think I'll pass on Strider, and I'll take Aaron Nola. I had just had a little bit behind him. I had Nola pretty high. Nola and Scherzer kind of like the next couple guys. So I was like, well, Aaron Nola, like, tough to go wrong. He's always pretty solid. We'll take Aaron Nola.
Same bucket. Yeah.
Right. And then if Strider gets hurt, like, I won't be totally decimated. Oh no, the snowball, Jeff, is just starting to roll down the hill, because in my next draft, by the time it came for me to pick again around the 2-3 turn, this was more around 3, Strider's gone. Nola is still there, and so is Sandy Alcantara. And I was like, well, I got Alcantara like just kind of behind Nola, and I just got a Nola, so maybe I'll take an Alcantara to just kind of really spread things out.
Just twist yourself into that pretzel.
Right? So I could not have had Strider in 3 leagues. I could have had Strider in 3, not all 4. But I could have had him in 3. I only took him in 2. I ended up with 2 Striders, a Nola, and an Alcantara. I could have, if my strategy was to not spread out the risk, but just go with the best guy on my list at every pick, I would have had 3 Striders and a Nola. In the 4th one, I would have taken Nola, because I would have had no Nola. And I did have him ahead of Alcantara, just not by a lot. So this is, I don't know if it's a sample size of 1. Like, but my takeaway is next year, maybe just, Fred, take the highest guy on your list, and if you end up with 5 shares of the same pitcher, I don't know, but maybe you're
not playing enough volume to diversify.
Maybe not. I'm not playing 30 leagues or something like that.
If you're a volume player, then diversification for diversification's sake is fine. When you're playing in 5 or 6 leagues, just take the best player. I
guess so. I just didn't want to if Strider was hurt right now, which every pitcher gets hurt at some, from time to time. If Strider was hurt right now, I would be telling a different story and saying, hey, Nola hasn't been great, but at least I don't have an injured Strider.
Yeah.
So
at least I don't have this universal exposure to Alek Manoah. Yeah.
Exactly. So I don't know. But this story has made me think maybe I should just take the highest ranked guy. I don't know.
I think you trust your instincts too. I mean, you do your own rankings, your own projections. You've been doing this for 30 years almost, probably, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Great track record. Trust your instincts.
Yeah. I do also know, and you know this too, when you do your own projections, back to the hinges analogy, like little changes in the stats move guys way up. And so I had Strider ranked as my SP3. If I just got some cold feet, maybe on his innings, and I took off 10 innings and then with Strider, if you take off 10 innings, you're taking off 15 strikeouts, and then maybe take off a win. All of a sudden he tumbles from SP3 to like SP8. And I know that. So I know the way that when you do your own projections, that little changes make big adjustments on the list. So I knew when I had Strider ahead of these guys, I had him narrowly ahead of Scherzer, as I said, Verlander, deGrom. I don't know. That one's going to bug me all season. It is every time. So unless Nola goes on,
it's going to be a grinning gremlin smiling at you there.
Yeah, And predictably, both of my Strider teams are doing well, and my Nola and my Alcantara teams are not doing near as well.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. So be it.
Yeah.
So it goes. All right. We have news. Other news. Injury news. Let's start with the Twins. Byron Buxton went on the IL today. So there was he was kind of day-to-day going into this week. Not only is he not playing tonight, he's on the IL. No Royce Lewis in the lineup, but Carlos Correa is in the lineup.
Okay. And then I was just pulling up who the Twins I picked.
They're at the Rays.
At the Rays. Oh, yeah, right. It's this weekend where I thought there was a matchup. Oh, it's against Kikuchi on Friday, where I thought it was a great matchup for Correa in DFS. Anyways, Byron Buxton's hurt. Now I'm victory lapping. Knocked me over with a feather. Like, I don't know how many, right? Like, if you picked Byron Buxton to play in more than 120 games, you were, I think, foolish. Like, and I don't know. I don't know. Buxton's, he is what he is. He gets hurt a lot.
Sure.
Maybe he'll play if he plays in 120. I think that's the very high end. So, anyways, he made it through 50 games before his first IL stint. He hasn't been awesome this year. That's just what we're talking about. Buxton, like, he's got 10 homers. He's got 6 steals. 6 steals are nice. That's a bit of a comeback for him as far as steals go. But he's kind of settled in now as this low average hitter. You know, with the injuries, he can hit you 20-something homers. He's actually, to me, not that exciting anymore like he used to be.
No, he's not. I mean, the fact that he's got 6 steals, that's like 4 more than I thought he'd have by this point in time. So
yeah,
that's been nice.
Yeah.
But otherwise,
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I've ever had Buxton on a team. Now he turns 30 in the off season. I don't know. To me, he's not exciting anymore. He's just injury prone. When he's healthy, he's totally playable.
Yeah.
But if he's going to hit for this low average, his career average now is 242. He's been below that the last couple of years. Like, I don't think you're going to get a high batting average any season for the rest of his career. So, yeah. Anyways, is Buxton a hold everywhere?
Yeah, he's a hold.
I guess we have to see the timeline, but for now, I think I agree with you. For now, he's a hold.
Yeah.
If you're in this speed, I think he's a hold.
Yeah. AJ Smith-Shawver, you were talking about Andrew Abbott's FAAB bids. I'm kind of annoyed that Smith-Shawver is going to start this weekend because I might have been able to slip him in cheaply if he was still in the bullpen. Remember last year, Strider, and here we go back to Strider. You know, he was in the rotation. No, he's not. We were going to put him in the rotation. We decided not. You know, I didn't bid big on him when he was available as a free agent. He was, later available as a free agent because of that false start as a starter. Could have had another bite at that apple. He had 2 chances to get him up in free agency. I was kind of hoping that would kind of track this year, but no, he's going to be in the rotation this weekend for the Braves. I tend to think it's for good. They sent down Mike Soroka. I could be wrong, but I want him the rest of the way.
Yeah, me too. I'm gonna have to check and see if there's any of my leagues where he wasn't picked up. I wasn't aggressive on him. He was in my waterfall. I don't think my waterfall really made it to him. A lot of my leagues needed hitting more than pitching this weekend. Innings will be a concern. He threw 68 and 2/3 last year. So how far they're willing to let him go in innings will be a concern. But the Braves are really good. If he's a solid pitcher, like, he could get a lot of run support on that team. The bullpen's solid. Yeah, if he's still available in any of my leagues, we'll see how this start goes on Saturday. But if he's still available in my leagues, I'm interested. I would take him over Andrew Abbott right now for sure.
Okay.
Like, they haven't, like, Smith-Shawver hasn't even pitched, so I can see someone being like, Fred, you're crazy. Like, you take him over Andrew Abbott, he hasn't even pitched in the majors. But I just think the situation there is much more favorable as far as just the home park, which isn't favorable in Atlanta, but it's not Cincinnati. The team. Yeah, the way the Braves, and I'm not comparing him to Spencer Strider. I know people are doing that and saying, like, this guy's the next Spencer Strider. Like, he's probably not. It's
a facile comparison. I mean, it's a studly young Braves pitcher who had his first outing in the bullpen, but all throughout the minors, he's been a starter. I think that's one of the big differences. He's had one outing where he's been a reliever. He was good against the Diamondbacks and did very well there.
He can clearly strike batters out. There's been control issues at times in the minors, but he's young. Like that's not surprising that there's been control issues. He's 20 years old. So exactly. and he's debuting in the majors. Like, good for him. So I think I would take him over Abbott I could obviously change my mind just like the rest of the industry by the time
For
FAAB
sure.
comes up on Sunday. So good for those who snuck him through as a reliever at $5 a FAAB or something on Sunday night. Good for you.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I took the chance. Like there's the kind of guy you would have dropped him if you dropped him a Manoah for just the chance on someone with upside like that. Like good for you. Yeah,
Exactly. Exactly. Luis Arraez. We got to talk about him. I've spent very little time talking about Luis Arraez this year, but he's awesome. He's awesome at what he does. Maybe he's not the best fantasy player because even though he hits for that great average, what comes along with it. But 399, one homer, only 22 runs scored despite hitting 399. That's really hard to do. Only one stolen base. So you can't really he's not a fantasy MVP. He kills batting average for you, which is amazing. But I mean, there's that trade-off. There's no power. There's precious little else. Remember, there was buzz about Arraez being able to hit, 10 to 15 homers. Oh, he can hit for more power. He doesn't.
Yeah.
No, I don't know if he can.
I don't think he can. No. Nope, I don't think so. I think this is who he is. He's a line drive hitter. Good for him.
Yeah.
The fact that he has a 450 on base so far and has only scored 22 runs and he hits high in the lineup is remarkable.
Yeah.
It is a wild
it actually speaks against the rest of the Marlins lineup. Too.
Absolutely. Which that lineup isn't good. But if he kept this up and had a 450 on base and scored 60 runs this year, that would be like an all-time stat that people would talk about forever. For fantasy production, it's too bad he couldn't steal a few bases with the new rules. He's 1 for 3 this year. His 4 is his career high. He this year so far has 66 singles and 19 walks. So 85 trips to first base.
So he's kind of getting the Buxton treatment. They're trying to preserve him.
I just think he can't do it. In his career, he's got 9 steals on 19 attempts. He can't do it. No. He can't run. So I don't know what this guy's worth in fantasy, in a trading league. He's hitting 399, which is great. I looked it up. I think on the Yahoo player rankings, I think he's 80th, so about 80th so far this season. That's with basically a 400 batting average. Unlucky in the run score department. But when this batting average now turns, eventually it's going to turn. Let's say rest of the season, what do you think his batting average is going to be? 320, 325?
Yeah, something like that. So he'll end up hitting 360 for the season or something like that, which is crazy.
Yeah. So, but going forward, if it's about 330 and there's no power and there's no speed in a season where there are more steals and plenty of home runs, because he's hurting you a little more when there's more of them going around and he's not getting any of them. He hurts you a little more in those areas. I'm just interested. I'll be very interested to see at the end of the season what this guy is valued as an overall player. Is he a top 150 at the end of the season or not? If the batting average comes back down, like I said, let's say he hits 350 this year, that would be amazing. A 350 batting average. But if it's with 4 homers and 3 steals and 60s in the runs and RBIs, I don't know. I'm fascinated. I am fascinated by this guy. I have no shares. I don't even really regret it.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
I don't know if I even really regret it. I guess I should a little bit, but
no, you shouldn't though, because he's absolutely at the peak of his powers, and he's the 80th rated hitter. What happens when he's not at the peak?
I know. So yeah, and he has been lucky. He has a 414 BABIP. I know that he hits a lot of line drives. He can support a high BABIP, but he's not a 414 BABIP.
Yeah.
So
that's the way I'm at with that.
Yeah, but I do think the power and the speed are hopeless. The speed especially, I think the steals are just not there. The homers, he hit 8 last year, so maybe he can go on a bit of a power bender and maybe have maybe in the next third of the season he hits 3 homers or something or 4.
Right.
But I just don't think it's there in him unless he were to totally change what he does. But why would he? For us, for fantasy, for a real baseball perspective, teams would love this guy. He gets on base a ton, good enough.
Yeah.
Right. He doesn't have power, whatever. Teams don't care that much about stealing bases. He can get on base. Teams are going to love him. He's going to have a long major league career with this skill set. He does not need to change. So I don't think he's going to. Yeah. Yeah.
But we shouldn't change either.
No. We shouldn't change how we value him. Anyways, he to me, he's going to be a statistical oddity that I'm going to follow all season. And I would love it if he hit 400. That'd be really, if he had a chase for 400 late in the season, that'd be really cool.
It would be.
Do you remember the John Olerud chase for 400?
I do.
Months ago.
I do.
Yeah. As a Jays fan, I remember that being like, that's a long time ago. I'm trying to just quickly look up. He finished at 363. Wasn't even that close in the end.
No.
363. So, but he was that season. He was at 400 around 400 for a very long time.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
All right. Once again, we kind of gave short shrift to hitters, although we spent the first 15, 20 minutes on Elly. So, I mean, that's on me also. So the next time we do a pod together, and it will be in 2 weeks because I'll be traveling next week, but in 2 weeks, we'll open with hitters. Remind me of that. And we'll give fairness to that, because we did talk hitters, but we spent more time on pitchers. But anyhow, want to thank Batflip for their sponsorship. Thank you, Fred, for doing this. And thank everybody for the great conversation in the chat room. Appreciate it there. We'll talk to you again Thursday. Guest to be named later. Wednesday, got James Anderson's pod. Stay tuned for all that here on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Take care.